free Wi-Fi. I thought it was like a type of cheese.
Right. All right. So it looks like we are live. All right. So welcome everybody to the first ever live webcast of We Sports Talk Live's fantasy football segment. We decided to call it After Further Review. I am your weekly host. Again, my name is Jay Gibbs. You usually see me on We Sports Talk Live. Usually at the website as the Packers ambassador. I do try to fill in every once in a while for fantasy football questions, which is why we're launching this. My guest host this week is going to be Keith Roberts on Facebook. He is a MMA junkie, currently the mastermind behind the MMA Takeover on Sports Talk. I guess I'll let Keith kind of take over here a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of the MMA before we jump into fantasy football, if you'd like.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate being a guest. Yeah, I'm kind of I've been in sports talk for, I don't know, maybe about 2 years now. Probably about a year ago. There was very lacking of MMA talk, and there was a couple threads, and I think this guy Simon, I haven't seen him on in a long time. He used to create these threads. We used to talk, and I noticed more guys gathering, more guys asked for more MMA material. MMA is my favorite sport, with football really, really close second. So I figured there's tons of people who do football stuff. There's no one doing MMA stuff, so I just kind of took over. We do a lot of stuff MMA, but football is another one of my favorite sports, and fantasy football is a passion of mine. I play in 6 leagues. At one point, I played in 7 leagues. So
awesome.
I play fantasy baseball. I play fantasy basketball. I did fantasy NASCAR once, and I didn't even know. I don't know anything about NASCAR. I know they have 4 tires.
There you go. All right. Well, it looks like you were the right choice to have for our inaugural guest here. So again, thanks for.
Yeah, I didn't say I was good at it. I just say I play it.
It's all right. Hey, if you're in that many leagues, you at least know how to fake it really well. So we'll stick with that. And well, why don't we jump right into it? Coming into week 2 here. If you'd like, we kind of go over some of the standouts and some of the duds from week 1. It was good to be back into football. Lot of high draft picks, a lot of expectations coming into the NFL season here. Was there anybody that really stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of came up with one for each position. I kind of did it last minute, so I didn't really give too much thought. I think one of the biggest ones was Spencer Ware at running back. This is a guy that, over, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago, it looked like Jamal Charles was the starting running back there. Jamal Charles was an early pick in many leagues. In my main league, it's a 14-team league, the one that I'm a commissioner of. Jamal Charles was a first-round pick. It was a late first-round pick. It's a little deceiving because we have keepers in there. They get kept in the round, so it's a little deceiving. But even since if we threw all the keepers back, he would at least would have been a mid-second round pick. So to fill in, I mean, Spencer Ware came in last year. He filled in after Charkandrick West got hurt. Spencer Ware came in, so he was. I mean, if you go back to last year, at this time, Jamal Charles was the guy. Niall Davis was viewed as this number 2 guy, and then you had Charkandrick third, and I believe Spencer Ware might have been on the practice team or might have been just playing special teams at that time. And to be a year later, I mean, I grabbed him in DraftKings. I played a head-to-head league against Justin. He came through big. He was good rushing and receiving this week. I don't know when Jamal Charles is coming back. I know he hasn't been ruled out this week, but I had that feeling that he's not playing this week. I could see him being out this whole month. So, I mean, that's a hot player right now. He came through week 1. Another one is a wide receiver, is a guy I actually really believe is Willie Snead. He had a huge game. I think he had about 180 yards receiving. I mean, it was a high scoring game. I think Drew Brees threw the ball 40-something times, 42 times, something like that. So obviously he came through. At the tight end position was Jason Witten. I mean, I think he had double-digit targets. I think he had 8 catches, 10 catches, something really high. But if you were in a PPR league, Jason Witten came huge for you. And even if you had a standard league, to have a guy that I'm assuming a lot of people didn't start him. But if you did, if you're in a deep league, or maybe you had Gronk who was out, or maybe you were smart and you said Dak Prescott could do some drop-off passes. Jason Witten was huge. And the quarterback that I was most impressed with, and he didn't have that – he had a great game. He didn't have the highest numbers, obviously, Drew Brees and Andrew Luck and a couple other guys. But the guy that really stood out to me was Jameis Winston. I was a Jameis Winston believer. I remember being on here on Sports Talk when they asked Dud a stud, and I said stud when he was getting drafted last year in the draft. And I kind of got convinced when I saw his leadership. I saw some behind-the-scenes things I really liked about him, and I was convinced then. And he looks like a future star. He isn't your conventional black running quarterback. He's actually an in-your-pocket passer, but he's big. He stands in the pocket. He actually reminds me a lot of Drew Bledsoe. He's slow like Drew Bledsoe, but he has a cannon of an arm, good decision maker, and he's not scared to let it air out. So that's the four guys that really stood out to me this week. And I got duds too whenever you're ready.
No, thank you. Yeah, I agree with just about everybody you said. My
Jake, you're frozen. I can't hear you.
I kind of.
Yeah, lost him.
Hello?
Yeah, Jay?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I'm sorry about that.
I froze. First episode.
Right, there we go. Yeah, I guess I should have named the program technical difficulties. I
agree. Can go down week 1, then we're okay.
Right. I agreed with you fully on Spencer Ware. He was my go-to stud for fantasy running back. Definitely turned a lot of heads. And I think even when Jamal Charles starts getting fully healthy, he's going to see some competition there. So I definitely think he showed up week 1. My quarterback was Drew Brees. He's getting up there in age. Just got that new restructured contract yet again. He's always known for throwing a lot of yards regardless of how well the team does. But just to see it right out the gates again that he's still got it was nice to see. My wide receiver that was coming into week 1 that kind of turned a lot of heads definitely came out of the gate and showed why he needs to consistently be. You hear his name a lot from people who know football and who know fantasy football, but he's kind of down the line when you hear it from a casual fan. That's AJ Green. AJ Green consistently gets left out of people's top 5s, and I've even heard him left out of top 10s. I'm not sure how, but he had a monster game in week 1 as well.
Against Darrell Reeves.
Exactly, and what really I liked, not just from a fantasy standpoint, just as a football fan, he was interviewed after the game. Reporters looking for sound bites, trash talking Darrell Reeves. And AJ Green was all class. He's like, it's always an honor to go up against, a guy who's consistently considered one of the best in the league. So it's kind of cool to see that. But I have a feeling that Darrell Reeves is kind of missing that other AFC East team he used to play for, being back on the Jets. And then my tight end, again, was Jason Witten. Dak Prescott looked to him as a complete security blanket. I don't know if Jason Witten has ever had that kind of fantasy production, especially from a PPR standpoint. And that kind of brings me into actually staying with the Cowboys. That brings me into my fantasy duds for week 1. My dud wide receiver goes to Dez Bryant. You have one catch for 8 yards. Coming back, and he's touted as the guy in Dallas. Dak Prescott didn't look terrible as a quarterback. Dez was just having some trouble with separation. I believe he was only targeted, though, 5 or 6 times. But to only convert one of those definitely had to hurt fantasy owners that owned him. My running back dud goes to Adrian Peterson. Only 31 yards, 19 carries. There, you don't have anybody really to blame as far as catching or anything. Production relies just on him. He's going to be the guy in Minnesota. If Minnesota wants to compete for the NFC North and get back into the playoffs, it's going to be on the legs of Adrian Peterson. So to see that outing against an average at best Titans team maybe raises some questions. Those were I only picked 2. I didn't really go position by position there, but if you had any other duds or if you wanted to comment on mine, I'll turn it over to you here.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with both guys you said. Dez Bryant was my dud for wide receiver. I think it was a little deceiving. He did have a touchdown catch that was overturned. So if he catches that pass, he would have had 2 catches. I think it was like maybe a 20, 25-yard. So it still would have been a low yardage game, but points-wise would have not been too bad. And Prescott actually underthrew him on another play that was in the end zone that Dez actually almost turned into a second. So he was really close to having a 2-touchdown game. I could see a lot of fantasy owners is panicking. Definitely think you have to drop Dez in your wide receiver rankings. Normally a guy top 5, top 7 guy, no brainer. I would probably drop him down to top 12, top 13. But week 1 is the week where everyone panics. And you have that guy that I always call overreaction week. So if you got a guy that's viewing Dez as a top 30, top 40 guy, I would go get him because if he catches 2 touchdown passes, he was really close. Now that turns into a 15, 18-point game, instead of in a standard scoring a 0.6 game.
Right.
So, if someone panics and if you could turn Willie Snead, who I actually believe in, but if you could turn Willie Snead into Dez Bryant, I would take that. I think obviously but even if you could do Willie Snead and compare and match him up with a D'Angelo Williams or Spencer Ware or some other guy who really blew up, even like if you could grab T.J. Yeldon and Willie Snead and put that in a package for Dez Bryant, I would do that in a heartbeat. Put his dud was Gary Barnidge for tight end. He was a huge name coming in after the unbelievable season last year. He had 0 catches, 0 yards. He gave you a goose egg. And for quarterback, I put Blake Bortles. I thought he had a good matchup against the Packers. Not that the Packers are a bad team, but just I expected to be a shootout. And he really didn't perform. I thought the Packers held him in check. And this was the guy that finished top 5 or 6 last year in points. I had him a little lower in my list and rankings than most people. I think most rankings had him in the top 10. I had him a little lower, maybe top 12, top 14. But I still think there's a lot of fantasy owners that probably started him and expected a lot from him. I'm not saying to sell on him. I'm just saying for this week, I thought he was a big disappointment.
No, I definitely agree. I was surprised. I was watching that Packer game pretty closely. I was expecting a very high-scoring affair. He did get, he got a couple of yards, but for the most part, Green Bay secondary did kind of step up and kind of from somebody who was highly touted, like you said, going into this season. It was definitely underwhelming if you were an owner that you were maybe sitting him for somebody else. So that brings us, you said the panic. Yeah, you definitely you want to panic a little bit if you own Dez, but you do see the upside for him. How about my dud running back Adrian Peterson? He's 31. He's been the workhorse ever since he came into the league in Minnesota. 31 carries, 31 yards on 19 carries. Very lackluster showing. Should people be panicking?
No, it's Adrian Peterson. I understand that. I get it. He's 31 years old. He doesn't catch passes like he did when he was a rookie. I understand what guys hit a wall, but he led the league in rushing last year. Last year wasn't that long ago. This is the guy, Justin. There's so many question marks about running back that I thought Adrian Peterson was the safest guy. which is ironic for a guy that just a year ago missed the entire season because of off-the-field issues. This is also a guy who's missed time with torn ACLs and this and that. So he's had a bumpy road, and I feel like every year Adrian Peterson has a game where people stop panicking. I am a lot more worried about Todd Gurley than I am about Adrian Peterson. If you could go out and get Adrian Peterson right now, go get it. If you could take our lower running back who had a good game, maybe a Mark Ingram or LaShawn McCoy, who both guys I like, but if you could turn it into Adrian Peterson, go get it. And there's guys in your league that are panicking that will drop get him now, because maybe next week he doesn't do anything, maybe the week after, but eventually he's going to blow up and he's going to be Adrian Peterson.
I agree. Definitely agree with you there, Keith. I mean, as a Packer fan, I've been able to watch a lot of Adrian Peterson throughout his career. You can never count Adrian Peterson out. One bad week, and of course it has to happen week one, like you said, overreaction week. It's easy, and it's probably a very popular thing to jump on he's 31. He finally hit the wall. I would need to see a lot of games without production before I'm willing to call somebody like Adrian Peterson, who in my opinion is really a once in a generation kind of running back. Dude's a cyborg.
To my opinion, to me, he's the best running back since Emmitt Smith retired, Barry Sanders. Those guys in their primes. Hold on. I mean, LaDainian Tomlinson, I kind of forgot about him. LaDainian Tomlinson's, Marshall Faulk. Those are two once-in-a-lifetime guys. But like you said, we're talking about, LaDainian in the last 20, 25 years of football, there's been 5, 6, when guys mention Jerome Bettis and Curtis Martin, they're on a tier lower than Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and Adrian Peterson and LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk. But Adrian Peterson, when he finishes his career, I think he'll be at least in the top 10 discussion for all-time running backs.
I definitely agree.
And he's never had a bad season in his career, so you got that going.
I definitely agree. And that it was a good wrap up here for week one. Kind of get that panic mode out. So looking ahead now to week two matchups here, who are your must start? Give me like a QB, running back, a wide receiver. Who are you looking forward to if they're on your roster? They're definitely going to be starting coming into week two here.
I was a little. You want me to give you one?
If you have a couple in mind, go ahead and give me some.
When you said 3, I think you meant 3 per position. What I did is I didn't want to do the obvious ones. Oh, who should I start at quarterback? Should I start Aaron Rodgers? Of course you should start Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Should I start Cam Newton? If someone ever asked me, hey, should I start Aaron Rodgers? And I'm gonna say no, you shouldn't, because you don't waste my time. No, bench Aaron. Or should I? Oh, Adrian Peterson had a bad week. Should I trade him? Yeah, go trade him. See how that works for it. Should I trade my first round pick after one bad week? Okay, yeah. So quarterbacks that I like this week. First guy I think is one of the most disrespected guys in fantasy is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is a guy that last year, before he got hurt, he was top 5 in scoring, top 5 in points in standard scoring leagues. I couldn't really believe why he was so low in so many people's lists. I mean, I get it. He got hurt, and McCarron filled in for him and played well. But Tyler Eifert was hurt, and Marvin Jones is gone. But he finished top 5 in scoring. Even if he drops down, and he was a top 10, top 12, that's still very productive. And I think he's got a great matchup this week against the Steelers. I expect it to be a high-scoring game, a shootout. You can see how the Steelers basically stopped the Washington run last week, so I expect them to air it out. Like you said, is unstoppable. I expect a lot of passes to A.J. Greenway, especially with Eifert still out. Tyler Boyd is probably the number 2 guy. He's not really established yet. So I expect a good game from Andy Dalton. And there's another thing that a lot of people think. Giovanni Bernard coming out of the backfield is a nice scat back catching passes, which junk time yardage is still good yardage. Another guy is Derek Carr. They're playing
Atlanta,
the Falcons this week. they're playing the Falcons this week, who got scorched by Jameis Winston last week. They were bottom half last year in scoring for passing, one of the highest in giving up fantasy points to quarterbacks. And he's got two good wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree is a guy who puts up numbers but never gets respect. So Derek Carr is a guy that I hate to say, and this is in no particular order. This is just me going down the schedule.
Yeah.
Third guy, like I said, it's not like no particular order. Is a guy that I hope does bad, but I would start him if I had him on my team. Is Eli Manning. They're loaded with weapons. I mean, Odell Beckham is elite of the elite. Sterling Shepard had a nice game, and Victor Cruz, his first game back, he fought in the end zone. Rashad Jennings is not too bad coming out of the backfield. Shane Vereen is one of the best third down catching guys. Larry Donnell got in the end zone this week. So Eli Manning, he's going against the Saints. The Saints can't stop anybody. Derek Carr tore him up this week. So they were 31st in the pass last year, and they didn't like anybody improved. So Eli Manning's a guy that I would definitely start. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to jump in at quarterback?
I guess I'll jump in with my QBs real quick.
Okay.
We can go back. We'll go with running backs next. I agree. I guess no particular order for me. I was taking a look at it. One of my must starts is going to be Derek Carr against Atlanta. Like you said, I think he just got done with a shootout against the Saints. Another kind of a soft secondary matchup here. I definitely expect another shootout with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones on one side of the ball. Then you got Carr, Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, Seth Roberts. He got involved last week as well. So I definitely think Carr, definitely want to take a look at him. Another one I think you're going to like. I think that he is now. I think I'm going to put him in as somebody I'm starting if I have him in my league. Is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
I wanted to go, like you said, kind of out of the box. Obviously, you're going to start, the big names at quarterback. I'm starting Jimmy Garoppolo. He looked very good against what is supposed to be, again, it's week 1. We'll see how it turns out throughout the season. He looked good against what is supposed to be a very good Arizona defense, and he has a matchup against Miami at home. He might, from what I'm reading, Gronkowski should be back. Otherwise, he still has Martellus Bennett, who stayed in for a lot of the game last week. He stayed in to block. I think that was to make Jimmy G kind of feel at home and a little more secure. But he really looked to come into his own, throwing to Hogan, throwing to Amendola, throwing to Edelman, of course. So if you have Jimmy G, I would start him this week. I think he has a lot of upside against Miami. I think Miami played a fluke, very good game against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. I don't think the Seahawks were ready for that, but I think you have one of the best coaches, one of the best game planners of all time in Bill Belichick. If not, I think he is the best coach and game planner of all time. But I definitely think Jimmy G is a must start. And then my last one here, which is going to get couple people in Sports Talk happy. Like I said, kind of reaching out of the box here. I am looking at Carson Wentz from Philadelphia. He has a favorable matchup. Against Chicago. In Chicago, but again, Chicago hasn't really shown anything. They made Brock Osweiler look like an all-star in week 1 after a slow start. So I think Carson Wentz, he looked good against the Browns. And again, he has another soft matchup against Chicago. But, if you have him on, depending on who your quarterback 1 is, but if you have Wentz on your roster, feel confident playing him. Like I said, I wanted to go out of the box on those. I guess, why don't you fill me in on who you're looking at running back?
All right, running back. Well, the first guy, I don't really go too far to the box. I kind of went with a pretty obvious guy. I just think that some of his owners might have panicked a little bit. Start this guy is Ezekiel Elliott. Everyone was disappointed because I think he had about 59, 60 yards rushing. Had a lot of carries. I think he had 20 carries for 60 yards or 59 yards, something like that. He didn't have a huge game. He still got a touchdown. So in a bad game, I guess the division round, you still get a touchdown. that's still not that bad of a game. And he's going against the Redskins this week, who was 26 in the rush last year, team defense against the rush. You saw D'Angelo Williams, who I like D'Angelo Williams. I mean, I like his story. I like his thing that goes on with his mom, his pink hair. I mean, he just seems like a really good dude. But talent-wise, he's not as – Ezekiel Elliott is one of these – they're talking about him like Adrian Peterson as one of the top prospects. So you got one of the best – you got a offensive line that turned Darren McFadden into, I think, top 6 in scoring last year, and he didn't even start the first 4 games. So against that Washington Redskins defense, I think Elliott has a big week, and I think if this might be the last week to get Elliott at a discount, because I think after this week, his value is going to be up big time. Another guy, especially in PPR, if you play in the PPR league, is I'm looking at James White. When you were talking about Garoppolo, one thing he did was he didn't really throw the ball deep. The one pass he threw deep was to Chris Hogan, and it was more of a busted coverage. I really expect them to rely on the run game and the little short passing. When Deion Lewis got hurt last year, James White filled in, and he wasn't as good as Deion Lewis, but he's still pretty solid, especially during the playoffs. He was a huge factor. And even going back to when Kevin Falk had games where he had a lot of catches for the Patriots. And since Kevin Falk's time, they've even relied on the little short screen passes and coming out of the backfield passes. So James White is definitely a guy I like, especially because, home game against a divisional rival, take a little pressure off from little dump passes to James White. I like him. And the third guy I was looking at is TJ Yeldon. I'm not a big TJ Yeldon guy in general from a skill sense, but sometimes opportunity is all you need. And Chris Ivory was hospitalized this week. It was really weird. General illness, they said, or general injuries. It was really weird. I still haven't heard exactly why he went to the hospital. I don't expect him to play. I'm not a doctor. He might play. So obviously check the news. But he's going against the Chargers, who are 31st against the run last year. Spencer Ware, who just went crazy against him. So I'm not expecting a Spencer Ware type game, but 80 yards and 2 TDs I could see happening. So that's definitely one guy I'm looking at is TJ Yeldon.
Very nice. That's I definitely like all of your picks there. Especially like the Zeke pick. I was definitely in that boat where, especially where people might panic with a rookie not having a great outing in week 1, they might have ditched him, and if you were lucky enough to pick him up, I think it's going to pay off for you, like you said, in week 2. Another running back I'm looking at, I'm not sure if it counts out of the box. I think it kind of is, just because he's hot and cold. I think this week he turns it on, is C.J. Anderson up in Denver. Got a very favorable matchup against Indianapolis. I think they go up early on Indy, and I think Simeon's going to feel a lot more comfortable giving that ball to C.J. Anderson after they have a comfortable lead. They aren't going to have to worry about Simeon coughing up the ball, throwing any picks. If they go up early enough with that monster defense they have in Denver, I think C.J. Anderson is going to be set up for a lot of yards, probably a couple touches as well. And then my other one that I'm looking at here, as I'm looking through my notes here, is Theo Riddick. Had a big game against Tennessee, especially in PPR formats. He was out there for almost every passing down. He's definitely their passing back. Amir Abdullah had a good outing, but Theo Riddick kind of stole the show. And they went up against Indy. They have Tennessee this week. Tennessee held Adrian Peterson. I think that was more a fluke than anything. So I expect I think Theo Riddick is a good play. If he's available and you're hurting at running back, maybe you had Chris Ivory as your starter, you drafted him, and then with the injury, if Yeldon's already gone once he got injured, if Theo Riddick is somehow hanging out, that would be a good pickup as well. And then my third one, like I said, was Zeke, especially as a value pick after a panicking week 1. I think he bounces back in week 2. Who are you looking at wide receiver there, Keith?
Wide receiver is the first guy, and and I mean, I don't see a lot of situations. This is more of for a shallower league, a 10-team or 12-team league. It's Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin had his first game back. I kind of expected him to get worked in slowly. I thought he might even be on a snap count, and he wasn't. They just went right to him. He got 12 targets in his first game back after a major. He's going against – who's Carolina going against this week?
Carolina had San Francisco this week.
Oh, San Francisco, yeah. They're going against San Francisco, which obviously they played great this week in defense. But they were 27th against the pass last year. And stopping Cam Newton and the Carolinas offense is a lot different than stopping the L.A. Rams offense, which is still kind of weird to say, L.A. Rams.
It is.
He's a huge target. He looks like a tight end. And so you got that. He's a good target near the end zone, but just getting 12 targets on your way back shows me that Carolina has confidence in him. And I could see in a 10 or 12 team, I could see him being your third wide receiver drafted, and having questions of whether to start him or not. So Kelvin Benjamin is a guy I like. Another guy is a guy that I have in a bunch of leagues. He was kind of a sleeper of mine. Is Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews came on. He was disappointed. I had him last year as a sleeper. He was basically a disappointment. And then at the end of the season, he came on really strong the last couple games. And this last week, he had 14 targets, which was almost 40% of every time they passed, they threw it to his way. He's big. He's got a lot of speed. He's one of these crazy athletes like a Julio Jones type and Des Bryant. One of these guys, you throw it up high, he just goes up there and catches it. So yeah, Jordan Matthews is the guy that I would feel really good to start. And the last one, and this is I'm going a little deeper. I could see a decision in like a 14-team league, or even a 12-team league that you might still not believe. I believe in Willie Snead. I think he's legit. I still think Brandon Cooks is the number one guy there, the guy you want. But the one thing, Drew Brees, he tends to get favorite targets. Like Ben Watson, he kind of became a favorite target him last year. This week, Willie Snead, he had 9 targets. He caught all 9 passes, which is huge. They're going against who are they going against? They're going against
New Orleans. They have the Giants.
Oh, they're going against Giants. Yeah, Giants were 32nd against the pass last year, covering Des Bryant with Dak Prescott and covering weapons that Drew Brees are throwing to is two different things. I expect a big game from all the Saints. I start all your Saints guys. Ingram, start Cooks, and start Snead. I would feel really confident, especially I think he'd still be a good value in like a DraftKings league or daily league. I think you still get a good price on that.
Nice. I like all those picks as well, especially like Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin sat comfortably on my bench in week 1 in one of my leagues, and I was worried about the same thing. I was like, how is he going to look coming back? So he sat comfortably on my bench, and I decided to start Jarvis Landry in front of him. And
yeah, I kind of thought of this more as a daily league, because I can't see a lot of leagues where you'd be questioning benching Kelvin Benjamin. So
right.
I just thought of guys you might want to look at in the daily format.
No, I like that. Yeah. Another guy I was looking at, especially in a daily format, because I think he's still going to be cheap, and he had a breakout week 1, and I think he's going to be something special in the league here. Is Tajay Sharp in Tennessee. Put up a boatload of points on week 1 against a Minnesota defense that's still. Minnesota defense balled out. Had a great defensive standing, and Tajay Sharp still found a way to put up a lot of yards. He has another favorable matchup. They're going to Detroit for week 2 here. Detroit couldn't stop much in a high-scoring affair with the Colts. I think that Tajay Sharp, especially for the money, was going to be a good play. Jordan Matthews was on my list as well. If you're playing Wentz, you might as well pick up Matthews to go with him because they seem to really click, and I do think in Chicago that is going to provide a very target-rich environment for Jordan Matthews to thrive again. And another one that I'm looking at here, whose value is definitely on the rise, is Mike Wallace in his new home in Baltimore. They are going to Cleveland. Joe Flacco, until proven otherwise, from this year, is I think a better passer than Carson Wentz, who's a rookie. But I think Joe Flacco finally has that deep threat that he lost when Torrey Smith left. Joe Flacco has the arm to throw it downfield. Mike Wallace is only good at running downfield. And they have a very favorable matchup against Cleveland. So I definitely like Mike Wallace. Again, those are my, like you said, in the daily formats. They're definitely going to be cheap. So you can pick up those wide receivers who are going to have those favorable matchups. It leaves you money to pick up one of those must-start obvious quarterbacks. Kind of along those lines. Are there any other
one thing?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, one thing I want to point out that you kind of mentioned on a strategy sense. If you're playing in a daily league, and say you're in like a 10-team league, and if you're playing in a 50-50 league, it's a different strategy. But if you're playing in one of these top three, gets points, you need to stand out from the pack. And one way to do that is to combine your quarterback and wide receivers. And the reason why is if it doesn't matter if you finish 4th or finish 10th, there's no difference. Well, you got to get yourself in the top 3, and the way to do that is if you grab the wide receiver that you think is going to have a game, grab his quarterback, and they're both going to have a good game, and then you're hitting at 2 positions. So like if you like Willie Snead, reaching for Drew Brees is not a bad matchup. I did it in daily. I wanted to get Antonio Brown, so I'm going to get Antonio Brown with Ben Roethlisberger, because if Antonio Brown has a game, chances are Ben Roethlisberger is going to have a good game. So that it increases your chances of maximizing at a position. So if you had Brandon Cooks this week matched up with Drew Brees, you hit big, or Willie Snead with Drew Brees, you hit big. So it's definitely a strategy. Now, it goes the other way. If they flop, they're probably both going to flop, and then you're going to finish last. But finishing last and finishing middle of the pack is no really difference.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And that's most of the leagues I'm in, it is, your top 3 or your top, 6 payout. So, 7th place and last place doesn't matter. You got to take those gambles. Pairing up is definitely the key to winning there. And, like you said, like we were talking about, some of these wide receiver matchups, they're on the rise, but they may not be there yet where their fantasy value, especially daily, they're still going to be cheap enough where you can pick up that wide receiver who's going to have a breakout game, spend the money on his quarterback, and then you're still going to have money, hopefully, if you got to get a little creative in the running back position or the tight end position. Yeah, I definitely agree with where you're at there. Are there any players, whether they're high value and maybe overrated, or if they seem to be a trendy pick that you're avoiding? Are there any players? It doesn't matter what.
Yeah, I kind of did. I kind of did the same thing. I did 3 for each position that I'm kind of avoiding. The first one I'm going with is Alex Smith at quarterback. He had a great week this week. He scored 30 points in standing scoring. Alex Smith is what he is. He has these games where he has rushing yards. He has a good game. But years have been in the league. But he's probably been in the league 12, 13 years. By now, you know what Alex Smith is. So I could see an inexperienced player deciding to bench Russell Wilson because he had a bad game against Miami, and now he's got this ankle issue. And you bench a guy that you took in the 3rd, 4th round for a guy that you took at the end or you just picked up on waivers. Don't get cute. Don't stat Alex Smith because he had one huge game of Russell Wilson. Alex Smith is good. He's going against the Texans defense. They were 3rd against the pass last year. That's my first. Do not start Alex Smith. The second one, and this is the guy that I actually see. This is my FU to Jeff Garassi. Don't start Tyrod Taylor. I didn't believe in Tyrod Taylor. I thought I kind of killed Jeff in a debate how he skewed his stats, compared him to Aaron Rodgers. It was one of the most ridiculous things I ever saw. I showed him how Mariota had a much better season than him. Anyways, he's got a short week, which tends to actually favor offense a lot. But still, a short week against a division rival. And then you have his number 1 receiver in Watkins, who's banged up. Sounds very serious. I mean, there was talks about him being shut down for 8 weeks, having surgery again. He's saying, but I've seen injured wide receivers be used as decoys. I mean, Calvin Johnson did it many times where all of a sudden he's questionable, and then he plays and they're not even passing to. So I could see that happening in Watkins. I could see him aggravating it and coming out of the game early. I could see him be on a limited count stat. There's a lot of things. So I would stay away. I get a very good defense of the Jets. Just got Sheldon Richardson back. I'd stay for him. And the third one, and this is actually our biggest first disagreement on the show, is I'd stay away from Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm probably shocking everybody that I'm saying this.
Yeah.
Let's slow the roll on the guy. The guy scored 14 points, which was very respectable. He went across. I mean, I didn't have to say. He went across the country, get a good team on the road. No Gronk. I mean, but if you take away that touchdown pass, now obviously you can do it. So you take away the touchdown pass, I think he would have scored roughly 8 points, and it would have been in a fantasy sense. I still expect them to rely on the run a lot. You pretty much have no deep threat in that offense, unless you really believe in Malcolm Mitchell. You don't know if Gronk's going to be back. Miami actually plays. There's always that one game against Miami that's always close. 2 years ago, we played them in September week 1 and actually lost to them. It was in Miami, so it's a little different being at home. I can't see a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo is your backup. I can't see you not having a better option. Like I wouldn't bench Andy Dalton or even like a Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had a bad week last week. I wouldn't bench Kirk Cousins for Jimmy Garoppolo. But obviously we disagree.
It is, and now my question, Keith, is was I a victim of overreaction Monday the other way?
Yeah, I kind of do. Well, I mean, that kind of goes both ways. Sometimes all right, I'm going to change it because this is part of the takeover. A fight. John Jones fought him, and Gustin was, a pretty decent prospect at the time. He had different, pretty decent fighter. Was ranked in the top 5, top 6. A lot of people didn't expect him to get the title fight. He got a title fight against John Jones. John Jones is arguably the greatest fighter of all time. At that time, he was definitely the pound-for-pound king. I guess you can make a very strong argument that he's the greatest fighter in history. And a lot of people expected John Jones to destroy Alexander Gustafsson. Then they had a close fight. And if you watch the fight, there's no way John Jones lost that fight. He clearly won 3 rounds, arguably won 4 out of 5, but definitely won 3. There's no argument. But there's people out there that says Gustafsson won. It's because they didn't expect it to be close, that he shocks them. And another good example was Dominic Cruz, how he got a decision over TJ Dillashaw, which was a really close fight, could have went either way. But how automatically, if it was a close round, they gave it to the guy they didn't expect. And I think this is he had 260 yards, which is a good game, but it's not spectacular. It's not, in today's NFL, there was probably 10 guys, 11 guys that went over 300 yards this week. A couple guys, 3 or 4 guys went 400 yards. If you ranked, where do you think Garoppolo finished in points last week? I think it'd be 16th, 17th, in points, maybe lower. So that I do think people are overreacting Garoppolo a little bit.
Okay. I like getting the insight from a Boston fan. But like also, I bought into it.
I'm always the world's ending Boston fan. I'm always the sky is falling, everything's going wrong. I thought it was going to be a bloodbath. I thought we were going to lose by 35 points this week. People call me a homer. I think it's the silliest thing ever because I'm accused of not being a homer enough. Yeah,
and I guess my quarterback to avoid. A lot of people consider him a must start no matter the matchup. I think this is a time you make an exception, and that is Andrew Luck. Had a good game. He had a good game against Detroit. A lot of people say he is a must start, but he's playing Denver in Denver. Denver Cam Newton had a good game, but he's Cam Newton. I think the difference between Cam Newton and Andrew Luck is there's a wide gulf there. I think Andrew Luck has a lot of upside, and then he sometimes fails to deliver on it. I think it's not so much Andrew Luck that I'm avoiding. It's Andrew Luck's offensive line. I think it's Andrew Luck's ability to stay on his feet. If depending on who your backup is, I would avoid him in daily. He's going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck, avoid spending the money on him. Another one was Tyrod Taylor. He had a terrible. I mean, for what some people were saying, it was going to be his year to come out and show why he deserves to be a starting quarterback. I think he threw like 168 yards in week 1. It's not like Baltimore has Ray Lewis and Ed Reed anymore. He plays the Jets. I think Darrelle Revis, for him, it's all about the money, but a lot of it, too, is his reputation. I think after getting scorched by A.J. Green, I think you're going to see a pretty angry Darrelle Revis up against Buffalo in an AFC, and it's a division rival, like you said. And then my third one was Alex Smith. So we were two out of 3 again. And yeah,
disagreed big on Garoppolo.
Yeah, exactly. And then the big gulf was on Garoppolo. And then any other? I'm trying to think. We went over most of them here. Any other people you're avoiding?
Well, I mean, at running back, are we going to go run back now?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop off what you said, Andrew Luck. I'm gonna add Frank Gore to the list. I actually like Frank Gore. I'm a Frank Gore believer. I heard someone describe it when the apocalypse ends and there's only zombies. Frank Gore will be the only one still alive. But in this matchup, he's going against Denver. They were third against the rush last year, number 1 ranked defense overall. I just don't think that's a horrible matchup. I mean, with a running back, you can always get a 1-yard plunge. That's not too bad. I don't think that's a great matchup. My number 2 one, and this is probably going to surprise people after I just pumped his tires a little bit. I don't know if I used that slogan right, but Spencer Ware. I would stay away from Spencer Ware this week. He's going against. Who's he going against? He's going against someone I don't like. Oh, he's going against Houston.
Yeah,
Houston was
in J.J. Watt.
Yeah, they were 10th against the run last year, but they were 3rd overall. Houston played. Who did they play this week?
Houston had Chicago in week 1.
Yeah, Chicago. I mean, Langford had a little short touchdown run, but didn't do much else. Spencer Ware, a lot of his stuff, he had a really nice catch and run. He's not really known for his catch and running, so I don't expect these receiving to be as high. I really like Houston this year. I really like their defense. I just don't like that matchup. More of a daily league. He's still really cheap in daily league, so obviously I'd play him if he's 1,000 points, less than other starting running backs. Then of course you have to take the value there. But if you're sitting there deciding between a struggling, a guy like Devontae Freeman is a struggling star. I'm full panicking on Devontae Freeman already, but I would still start Devontae Freeman over Spencer Ware this week. And my third one, I don't really have an answer. I just don't like this guy. I just don't think he's good. Is Matt Jones. I just don't think he's that good. I don't have a deep analysis.
It's all good. No, I like it. I definitely agree with Spencer Ware. So one thing that I could ask too is in a non-daily format, say you picked up Spencer Ware, he paid week 1. So you're saying sell him high, right? You sell him now, get some solid production.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what you could get for him, being that Jamal Charles could come. People know Jamal Charles is coming back. I agree with what you said that I don't think Jamal Charles is, because of his age. He's had 2 surgeries. He's having problems with his knee. I don't think I would sell him, unless I got obviously a great offer. Just because, I mean, you see with Deion Lewis started talking about problems he had, didn't feel right, and he had to have another surgery. It's not out of the realm possibility that it happens to Jamal Charles too, where you find out he needs another surgery, and then obviously Spencer Ware value goes through. I just don't like the matchup this week, not necessarily the player. But, someone offered me, all right, Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart didn't do much week 1. He had a tough matchup. I'd take Jonathan Stewart for Spencer Ware in a heartbeat. I think that's a guy you might be able to get. If you have Spencer Ware and you don't have Jamal Charles, and depending on what the Jamal Charles owner has, there's definitely guys I would target.
Nice.
That I think would be a fair trade. Maybe you don't have much at tight end, and Gary Barnage owner also owns Jamal Charles. I would do Spencer Ware for Gary Barnage. I still believe in him. And say you have a questionable tight end.
Nice.
But that might be selling too low. You might be able to do a lot higher than that.
Well, I definitely agree. And like I was thinking is if you have Ware, depending on what you can dangle him out there for, take advantage. But I mean, if you're not getting what you like, there's no harm in holding on to him, for a couple more weeks and seeing what all develops out of that. One of my running backs to avoid this week, again, was I'm avoiding anybody in Indianapolis. But yeah, I'm avoiding Frank Gore. Denver's defense is it's scary good. And, the same way that I'm not afraid of Andrew Luck, I'm afraid of Andrew Luck's protection. I'm not so much afraid of Frank Gore. I'm afraid of the fact that Frank Gore is going to have 3 defenders in the backfield as he's getting a handoff. You could be short of Adrian Peterson. Not many people are going to make it out of that backfield alive, so I'm avoiding him. Another running back, and again, he's considered kind of an upper. He kind of came into his own last year, and I see a bounce back game from the Cardinals. I think they learned a lot in Week 1. That cornerback they had guarding, I think it was Hogan on that busted coverage. Garoppolo was picking on him all day. I mean, and why not? Because he was not getting the job done. But I think what they do, they bounce back in Week 2. So I am also avoiding Doug Martin. If I don't have to start him, I think Arizona is going to have a great matchup with Tampa Bay. I think it's going to be, if Tampa Bay wants to win the game, they're going to have to do it with Jameis Winston's arm. I don't think they're going to have the luxury of running.
Do you view Doug Martin more as a void in daily? Because I can't really see you having a better option at running back.
That's true. Yeah, I would say yeah. I mean, if you drafted Doug Martin,
maybe a 10-team league. Maybe a 10-team league you would, but I don't really play in a lot. I play in a lot of deeper leagues. I mean, in a 14 or 16-team league, there's no way you would.
That is very true. But yeah, definitely in daily. I like this, by the way. I'm definitely going to start factoring that in our coming weeks here. I'm going to start, as far as the difference between your keeping the team that you drafted leagues and your daily leagues. Because yeah, I'm definitely avoiding Doug Martin. I just don't feel like
it also goes with what you're saying. Like, for example, I could say, I don't like Doug Martin this week, and I like James White. But if your options are Doug Martin or James White in a standard league, I'm going to start, in a non-PPR league, I'm going to start Doug Martin.
Yes.
But I'm saying, depending on what you're having, I would feel if usually to me, you gotta kind of have to compare them. Like my start of James White, I would start him over Matt Jones. That's a fair comparison. But James White versus Doug Martin is not a fair comparison. Even though I agree with you, I don't like Doug Martin that much either. I would start Doug Martin over James White.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Definitely enjoy the perspective you've brought, especially with the daily league. The buying and selling definitely makes more sense. When the point of daily is to make yourself stand out, like you said, you got to get creative. You can't just take the blue chip guys each week because you're not going to get anywhere. You got to find the guy that you think is going to break out. Hopefully, after this first outing here of after further review, we've gone over who we think is going to break out. We think we gave you who we think we should avoid. Didn't get too much action from what I was seeing in the Facebook thread. Hopefully, after this week, that's going to change. If you guys have any questions, feel free to send me a message. put something up in the thread that we put up in fantasy. I'll be back here on Sunday with Justin Peck for Prior to the Snap. It's going to be our pregame show. If we have any developing fantasy news, I usually do a little fantasy segment at the beginning of that. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Keith. Thank you very much for coming in.
You don't want to do our to avoid wide receivers?
Oh, goodness. We totally avoid. I avoided wide receivers so hard I didn't even give names. Why don't you break down those wide receivers for me?
My two. I'm gonna do one and two together because I think they're very similar. This is actually where we're having another disagreement. And I'm gonna I don't know what the word is. I'm gonna kind of hedge my bet on this one. In PPR leagues, two guys that I'm definitely avoiding is Deshaun Jackson and Mike Wallace. They're both big play guys, but what comes with them is low catch games. Even Mike Wallace this week, he had a huge game and had 3 catches. Joe Flacco is a very good deep passer. That's actually the best part of his game. But to me, it's boom or bust with those guys. They're actually a good play in daily leagues, especially Mike Wallace against Cleveland, because of the fact you need something to stand out, and he's the guy that either gets you first place or gets you last. So, but in a regular draft league, I'm staying away from him. Standard, not as much, even though in PPR, I'm definitely staying away from him. And the third guy, and I've been seeing him getting picked up in leagues, and it makes no sense to me, is Quincy Enunwa.
Yes.
For the New York Jets. He led the team in targets this week with 8 targets. I wouldn't expect that with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. You got 2 Pro Bowlers. I don't think Quincy Enunwa is going to lead the team in targets every week. So don't get cute and start Quincy Enunwa.
Like that. My avoiding wide receivers is, like you said, with the daily aspect of things. Another one. Again, I'm sticking with my my continuous avoidance of anything wearing a horseshoe on its helmet is T.Y. Hilton. He's an upper echelon receiver when he's on. He's going to carry that big price tag. I don't think he's worth it. Whether he's up against Aqib Talib or Chris Harris, it's going to be bad times for Indianapolis in Denver. And my other wide receiver I'm avoiding in daily fantasy formats. If he's in your 16-week fantasy football league, you obviously have to start him. I hope he has a good game personally, but for the price tag, I am avoiding Jordy Nelson this week.
Whoa!
Yeah, Minnesota's defense is good, man. I think it's going to take some crafty play calling. I think players who maybe aren't going to be the spotlight are going to have to step up. I think Devontae Adams, he had a decent touchdown catch, but he's very unreliable. I think he's going to have to dig deep and show why we keep him year after year in the second year now. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be getting tight end Jared Cook back in the game here. He wasn't utilized very much at all in week 1, but Jordy had a pretty pedestrian game in week 1, which is expected. He was coming back from that nasty knee injury. I think he had like 6 catches, but he had that touchdown catch. It looked good. He looked comfortable back on the field, but you can bet that Minnesota's game planning around stopping 87.
Yeah, they did seem confident in him because I think he only sat out 12 snaps, which was nice to see after a major injury. And he did get 3 red zone targets, which is huge because he was a big red zone target, red zone threat before. One thing I just want to clarify, if anybody's watching, you said you like Mike Wallace this week, and you said you don't like Jordy Nelson. What you're not saying is start Mike Wallace over Jordy Nelson.
Oh, goodness, yeah. Yeah, like I said, in a fantasy league, I would pick
or expectations of Jordy Nelson this week.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I think what you're saying is just lower your expectations of Jordy Nelson this week.
Correct. Yeah, I don't see Jordy
Nelson
having.
You're not saying bench Jordy
having
Nelson.
8 catches for 92 yards and 2 touchdowns. If Jordy Nelson is productive this week, Jordy Nelson's production, I see maybe like five catches for maybe 46 yards, 47 yards, and maybe a touchdown.
Which you'd be happy with Mike Wallace this week getting that.
I'm sorry. Well, would I be
You'd be happy
getting
from Mike Wallace?
My stat line for Mike Wallace against Cleveland, I can see Mike Wallace having like a 5-6 catch game, but I also expect him to touch 80 to 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
So that in a daily format, I'd rather gamble on the upside of Mike Wallace, because I think the upside for Jordy Nelson this week is only going to be a 9 to 11 point game. Yeah,
I mean, another way of saying it is like, okay, you're going to spend a lot of money on certain players in daily. Don't spend it on Jordy Nelson. Go spend it on David Johnson or Antonio Brown. Don't waste your money on Jordy Nelson. In a regular draft league, I will
Jordy never tell anybody to probably Jordy Nelson.
Yeah, he's probably your number one wide receiver. If not, he's your number 2 wide receiver on your team.
Correct.
We're not saying bench Jordy Nelson.
Correct. Yeah. So anybody who on this coming up Tuesday leaves me hate mail saying that they started Tajay Sharp and benched Jordy Nelson, they went and got him on the waiver wire. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you, if you have to spend money, pick up Tajay Sharp for cheap, because I think he's going to have a good game just this Sunday.
Yeah. Someone benches Andrew Luck for Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm blaming you.
That's fair. If somebody if you bench Andrew Luck and start Jimmy Garoppolo and you win your league matchup that week in your regular fantasy football lineup, please put that in a status on Sports Talk and make sure to tag both Keith and I.
Yeah, but what happens is if they start a player like over Drew Brees or Andrew Luck or something like that, they will take credit for being a genius. But when we tell them the wrong information, that's when we'll be to blame.
Correct, and I feel like I'm kind of gonna be like the weatherman. Like I'm gonna pick some stuff, and it's not gonna pan out. And like I'll pick a couple things. Like watch Tajay Sharp have 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, this Sunday. But nobody's gonna remember it because somebody started Jimmy Garoppolo over Blake Bortles or something.
When I was doing the Sunday morning, when I was giving advice Sunday morning, I used to always say before I give any advice, at the end of the day, you set your lineup, you make your decision. If you a lot of times people would ask me, who should I start, this guy, that guy? I don't really like either guy. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll take this guy. But
out of those
at the end of the day, you're the one who drafted your team. You're the one who set your lineup. I'm just giving you advice. You don't have to take my advice. People think they're smarter than me anyways. which would be wrong, but whatever.
But it's certainly they're entitled to their opinion, correct?
I'm undefeated in debates.
That's what I keep hearing. Well, that's why I had to bring you on, Keith. But no, I really appreciate you being the inaugural guest host here, and I hope I can have you back on a little bit later in the season as well.
All right, brother, it was fun. Thanks a lot, man.
Hey, take it easy, and we'll talk to you later. Sports Talk.
Good luck this week.